Hey guys, Mr. Marone here. Welcome back in for our third and final video for lesson 8.1. So we talked about how in a right triangle you can use Pythagorean theorem to find a missing side. And then I told you that there were two special sets of right triangles that had shortcuts to make life a little bit easier. We looked at the 45-45-90 right triangle, and now we're going to look at the other special right triangle, which is the 30-60-90. So if you look on your paper, I've marked a bunch of stuff in this 30-60-90 right triangle. I've marked that the two legs, the two sides that make up the right angle, they're different measures, unlike the 45-45-90. So we've got a shorter leg and a longer leg. And the shorter leg is always across from the 30-degree angle. Okay, the smallest side is across from the smallest angle. That leaves the long leg across from the 60-degree angle, and then my hypotenuse is always across from my right angle. So when we deal with these, there's actually two rules that we've got here. Before I get to those, if you notice, I've labeled things SL, LL, and H, or HYP sometimes. It's really in your best interest to label the sides because it makes solving these a lot easier. So with that, we have two rules here. And everything relates back to the short side. So if you don't have the short leg, you need to get that first. That's the goal, is to get the short leg first. So with that, I know my first rule is that my hypotenuse is always going to be 2 times the length of my short leg. So if my short leg's measure is 3, my hypotenuse's measure is 6. It's always going to be the case that they're going to be double the length. The other relationship that we have is that our long leg is equal to square root of 3 times our short leg. So those are the two rules that we're going to live with. Just like in 45-45-90, we knew the hypotenuse was square root of 2 times the leg. Here we've got 2 to work with. And if you notice, both of them involve the short leg. So like I said, it's all about the short leg. We want to relate back to the short leg whenever possible. That's our main goal here. So if we look at this first example, the biggest thing they want us to do, the only thing, is just to label properly. So straight across from my 90-degree angle is always my hypotenuse. Straight across from my 30-degree angle is going to be my short leg, and that means straight across from 60 degrees is going to be my long leg. And my shortcut here is to really always start with that first side, that short leg. So I always want to find the short leg first, no matter whether they give me the hypotenuse, the long leg, or the short leg. You want to find the short leg first. Anytime you're going from a smaller side to a bigger side, so short leg up to either of these, you multiply. Anytime you're coming back from a larger one down to the short leg, you're going to divide. So just keep that in mind as you work through it. Now, let's take a look at some examples just so we can get some practice with each of these. So in this first one, label. First thing you should do is label. So I'm going to label my short leg, my long leg, and my hypotenuse. So looking at this, they've given me the hypotenuse. I've got two rules that we said we had, that our hypotenuse was always equal to 2 times my short leg, and that my long leg was always equal to radical 3 times my short leg. So in this first one, they've given me the hypotenuse. I always have to find the short leg first. So I'm going to take this value and I'm going to plug it in right here to my first formula. So I've got 6 radical 3, my hypotenuse, and that equals 2 times y. Well, to get y on its own, I just divide by 2. Like we said, we're going from a bigger one to a smaller one, so we divide. And if I divide 6 by 2, I have that y equals 3 radical 3. Now, to find x, my long leg, we use the second formula. I'll change colors here so we have a different look. So in my second formula, my long leg is x, and that equals square root of 3 times my short leg, which we said was 3 radical 3. Now, when you're multiplying something like this, you can only multiply the numbers under the radicals together and the numbers outside the radicals together. So I've got a 3 out in front, and then underneath, I have radical 3 times radical 3, which is radical 9. And if you think about it, the square root of 9 is just 3. So I end up really having 3 times 3, or the value of 9. I have x equals 9 here. It's all using these two formulas based on what they gave us. Looking at the second example here, and then I'll let you guys try the other two. They gave us 4 radical 2, and that is my hypotenuse. We're going to label first. I've got my short leg, I've got my long leg. So once again, my hypotenuse, 4 radical 2, is equal to 2 times my short leg, which is y. We're going from bigger to smaller, so I'm going to divide, and I have 2 radical 2 for y. And then just like we did over here, my long leg is x, and that equals radical 3 times my short leg, which is 2 radical 2. 3 times 2 is 6, and there's no real simplifying of that, so I'm going to have that my long leg is 2 radical 6. So I've got x, and I've got y. All right. Jumping into 7 and 8, I'm going to let you do them on your own. Remember, you have to label your sides first, and then go ahead and solve. Okay, welcome back in. So if you look in this first one, I labeled, and they gave me my short leg. So all I have to do is use my two formulas and multiply 2 times the short leg to get my hypotenuse, which was x, and you can't really do anything more than just place them next to each other and have it 2 radical 5. And then for my long leg, I multiplied 3 times 5, and there's nothing else we can simplify 15 by as a radical. So my y is just radical 15. In the second one, this is a little bit trickier. They gave me the long leg, and I'm looking for the short leg and the hypotenuse. First thing I'm going to do is find my short leg. So I did 8 equals radical 3 times y, and since we're going from bigger to smaller, I divided both sides by radical 3. That's where we have to rationalize. We talked about that at our last video. So I have 8 over radical 3, and I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 1. Only I'm going to write it as radical 3 over radical 3. And when I end up doing that, the bottom becomes radical 9, which is just 3. And so I'm left with 8 radical 3 over 3. And that's my value of my short leg. To get my hypotenuse, I just have to double it. And if we think back to multiplying fractions, you multiply the tops and multiply the bottoms. So I end up with 16 radical 3 over 3 for my hypotenuse. This last one is the trickiest type that you'll see, but the process remains the same. No matter what, you're only going to use these two formulas right here. No matter what's given, you are only using those two when it comes to a 30, 60, 90 right triangle. So I hope you learned something from here. I hope that you can bring some questions into class tomorrow. I will answer any questions that you may have. Have a great night, guys. Bye-bye.